There's a lot of things the AFL doesn't tell you. From umpires caught betting on games, to teams winning the premiership and wooden spoon in the same season, these are 20 things you didn't know about the AFL. Now, St Kilda's been around for a very long time, 151 years to be exact, and in that time, they fought hard to pick up 975 wins, but they've also lost 1,486 games, the most out of any AFL team. To create a positive win rate, the Saints would have to win every game for the next 20 seasons straight. And based on their poor start to the 2024 season, I'm not sure if that record will ever be positive. Alan Didak played 218 games and won a premiership with Collingwood, so you think he'd be pretty familiar with all the AFL stadiums. Not quite. Didak is the only player with 200 or more games to have played at just 6 AFL venues. Somehow, he's never ventured down to Cardinia Park or the SCG. Then, there's the opposite end of the spectrum. Despite playing 116 games, nearly half as many as Didak, Jack Homsch travelled all across Australia and the world to play footy. No player in history has played at more venues in less than 200 games of footy than the former Suns defender. Homsch visited 21 venues, beating out Robert Harvey and Paul Salmon. Among these were some rarer ones, like Wellington Stadium in New Zealand and Jiangwan Stadium in China. David Swallow now holds the record with 22 venues. If you've ever wondered what the most common margin of victory in the AFL is, you're in luck. For many years, more AFL games were decided by a margin of 1 point than any other margin. But this all changed in 2018 with a colossal number of 2-point wins, which made the new number 2 points. However, currently it's back to 1, and so far in 2024, this margin has occurred twice. Dane Rampey climbing and shaking the goalpost against Essendon in 2019 was a huge brain fade from the captain that nearly cost the Swans the win. But he wasn't the first to do it. In fact, there were 6 players before him that were caught and punished for the same act. The first incident happened exactly 100 years ago when South Melbourne's Arthur Hando shook the post so violently it rocked a metre, and of course the Geelong player's set shot hit it. Now, you might not know that Hawthorn holds 2 different goal accuracy records, both from the same game. Against St Kilda in 1977, Hawthorn had 66 scoring shots, the most ever, for a final score of 191 points. Their 25 goals 41 behinds was the most behinds in an AFL game by far. Lee Matthews and his brother Kelvin scored 11 of these. Bob Pratt was one of the greatest goal kickers the game has ever seen, averaging 4.3 goals a match across his short-lived 158 game career. South Melbourne made it to the 1935 grand final and Pratt was set to play. But just 2 days before the granny, Pratt was hit by a truck and badly injured his already hurt ankle. This meant he couldn't play, and the Swans lost the grand final by 20 points, even though they were red-hot favourites. There's been a few AFL players across the sport's history who have also played cricket. Originally, Alex Carey's dream was to win an AFL premiership, but after failing to make GWS's main squad and being stuck in the reserves, Kevin Sheedy told him his future lay elsewhere and delisted him. And so he went the cricket route. Fortunately for Carey, in 2018, he landed his position as a wicketkeeper and batter for the Australian national team, thanks to a lot of hard work and dedication. In 2021, David Mundy went to the moon and back. Kind of. That year, some smart AFL fans calculated that since Mundy's debut in round 6 of the 2005 season, he'd travelled over 860,000 kilometres by plane. After 17 seasons with the Dockers, he played his last game in their 2022 semi-final loss to Collingwood, brightening the mood with his final career goal.
Is this David Mundy's last goal of AFL football? Maybe.
Former AFL umpire Michael Pell made a terrible decision in late 2022, betting on the Brownlow. Detectives became suspicious after there were unusual bets made on numerous rounds of the Brownlow that turned out to be right. It was suspected that Pell had leaked the votes. He was then arrested as part of Victoria Police's investigation into the scandal, but did not face any charges and maintains his innocence to this day. Would you believe me if I told you no premiership team has ever played together again? Because of player injuries and omissions, the likelihood of the exact same 22 playing 2 games together is a very low 6.2%. And here's an extra fun fact, the longest streak with the same 22 is only 7 games, just 7. So just note that the next time your AFL team plays, you'll likely never see that exact team play ever again. Only 2 AFL players have ever won both the Goal of the Year and Mark of the Year in the same year. The first was Peter Bosustow in 1981. For the mark, he took a screamer over his own teammate in the pocket, and for the goal, he smothered Ian Nankervis's kick before the snap from a tight angle. The second was Michael Mitchell in 1990. Mitchell speckied Fitzroy's Brett Stevens, juggling the ball with one hand and completing the grab. And nobody can forget his insanely speedy run from centre half back to the forward line for an on-the-run goal against Sydney. Melbourne great Russell Robertson played 228 games and kicked 428 goals for the Demons, but he nearly wasn't even an AFL player. Robertson grew up in the small town of Penguin, Tasmania, and was playing football for a local club. Then, a video of him taking 2 huge screamers over opponents was featured on the Footy Show's Almost Footy Legends segment. He was added to Melbourne's rookie list after being chosen with pick 68 in the 1996 draft, and it was history from there. Initially, when a friend told Robertson he'd been picked up by the club, he thought it was just a cruel joke, not having the belief that his AFL dream had come true. If I were to ask you which AFL team won the Wooden Spoon and the Premiership in the same season, you might be stumped. It's impossible to achieve both, isn't it? Well, the 1916 Fitzroy team, led by first-year captain Wally Johnson, did the impossible. Over 100 years ago, World War I happened and the league was heavily impacted. Player numbers dropped to an all-time low, and the number of competing clubs was reduced from 9 to 4. Fitzroy finished dead last, but all 4 teams still played finals. After beating third place Richmond by 3 points in the semi-final and top of the ladder Carlton by 23, the 1916 grand final came down to another match between Fitzroy and the Blues. After a 12-goal performance, the Maroons won by 29 points, completing the seemingly impossible feat. Did I miss any cool AFL facts? Let me know in the comments down below, and subscribe.